All right, so I'm going to take a quick second and attempt to explain something that I can't show you underwater yet. We'll attempt to do that at some point in the future. But people ask me all the time, how do I select the size hook for a lure, whether it's a lizard or a worm or whatever. And so we're going to take a look at lizard fishing today because that just happens to be what I'm having the most success with. One of the things that I like to do is I like to make sure that the hook is kind of matched up to the type of cover that I'm fishing. I'll show you what I mean. The first thing I want to do though is I want to make sure when that hook point is laying next to the plastic, that when I bring the plastic up and skin it, that it doesn't create a big kink. If it does, I'll either bite that hook and bring that hook point down, or I'll just bend it with some pliers to where it's got a little bit more natural lay. Otherwise, that thing's quick to catch on wood and pop out of the plastic, and you're going to end up hung up. Once you hang up, what most people make the mistake of doing is opening the hook up just slightly, and they forget to reset that. So if you ever hang up, make sure you bend your hook back into shape, or it's just going to hang up more and more and more after you hook up the first time. So when I'm fishing a Texas rig plastic, I like to have my weight free flowing. And so when I fish a lizard, I like to have a little bit smaller hook shank. And what we're going to do is we're going to talk about the angle of incident right here. I'm going to use this paddle shaft as a tree limb because this is about the diameter of most of the tree limbs I'm pulling the lizard over. This is just as important if it's a smaller tree limb or it's a really big log or something like that. But as I bring the lure up, notice how as it hits it, I'm bringing it up and the hook is now laying on the log. As I drop my rod tip and the weight falls down, it's going to pull the lure over the top. Now, as that happens, if I've got a longer hook shank, when it pulls the nose of the plastic over, now the hook flips over and it's on this side, the angle of incident is such that it's going to catch in the wood. So I go to a little bit shorter hook shank, about the same width of the cover that I'm fishing, and that pivot point goes over the top of the log and it doesn't hook up. If you use a longer hook shank, a 4 or a 5/0, in this case I'm using a 2/0 hook right here, but if I'm going to a 4 or 5/0, when that thing flips over, the leverage is back here and it's going to catch into the log. And so you want that hook point to be to the point where you want that hook size to be, once the weight falls over, it lifts the hook up off the log and it falls off the other side. And even if you have a tendency to hang up, you hang up on the upside. So all you got to do is loosen your line up, paddle the other direction, and pull it, and it comes off. If you hook up on the bottom, you almost got to get the hook point down there, or you got to use a plug knock or something to knock it off. So if you hang up on the upside of the log, on the tension side, all you got to do is let it go, come in the opposite direction, pull the hook the other way, and it'll come right off. So when I'm choosing my hook size, I'm generally trying to match it to the cover. And if I'm fishing really skinny tree limbs, the worst mistake I can make is fish a really big worm hook. If you're fishing a bigger worm hook thinking it's going to increase your hookup ratio, I think that's also another big mistake. So a 2 or 3/0 hook right behind the first set of legs on a lizard is probably the most effective. And even when you're fishing bigger cover, it's still going to be just as deadly. So when I'm rigging my lizards, I'm almost always going to stay downsized to a 2 or 3/0 hook. If I'm buzzing it across the top or fishing it like a topwater, then I'll jump up to a 4 or 5/0 hook and increase my hook size to increase my hookup ratio. But fishing thick cover, fishing lots of tree limbs that are submerged, 2 or 3/0 hook paired with a purple, black, or June bug lizard can't be beat this time of year anywhere in the South. Now, one thing to keep in mind is the only downside to fishing a little bit smaller hook is if you let the fish take it too long, they have a tendency to swallow a smaller hook a lot easier, and they have a tendency to get gut hooked. So if you're fishing Senkos, lizards, Texas rig plastics, speed crawls, things like that, you definitely want to stay on top of managing your lure position. When you feel them, pick them up, let it swim with it for a second, and then set the hook. You definitely don't want to let them swallow it completely because that smaller hook is a lot easier to swallow.